Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the July 10th, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call tonight's meeting to order. If you have not already taken an opportunity to enjoy one of the fine copies of our agenda that are on either side of the room, I would encourage you to do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment under item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. Any members of the audience wishing to make any comments or ask any questions of a general nature with respect to things not on tonight's agenda should at that time come up to the podium, let us know who you are, and we would welcome hearing from you at that time. But first, it is our proud tradition to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so I would ask everyone present to rise. Will join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I would now like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett? Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you. It brings us to item 3, which pertains to a review and approval of prior meeting minutes. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our council meeting minutes from our June 19th, 2018 meeting. If there are no questions, comments, corrections, or changes to those minutes, I would politely ask for a motion to approve. Please.
Mr. Tully, I move the council approve our meeting minutes from our prior meeting as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. And just like that, we are at item 4. Any members of the audience that have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things not on tonight's agenda, we are now at public comments. I would invite you to please come to the podium, let us know who you are, and we welcome hearing from you. Any questions or comments of a general nature from any members of the audience? Things not on our agenda tonight. General questions or comments. Good evening, welcome.
My name is Lee Sela, and I'm here because, and I don't know if this is under the general, but we talked to Stan Popovich, and I told him I was going to come to the meeting. But my wife has bees, and we had bees. My wife got, and she's had surgery, so she couldn't make it, so I'm in here doing this tonight, so I apologize. But she's had bees, and we called the village, and they said, well, we had no ordinance on that, and that we just go with whatever the state is. My wife registered her hives with the state, etc. And then you guys had the chicken law that came in, and it said you define things under the Department of Agriculture, and everything basically but certain chickens, female chickens, ended up affected by this. Well, bees are regulated by that, so therefore all of a sudden they ended up that they couldn't be done. My wife got a non-conforming waiver on this, but then we got a letter from the village that says, no, we went back and looked at this and bees were never authorized. So I know back in May you guys had a meeting of pollinators. This is out in your village hall thing, and I'm not going to bring much up there because I think you guys were there for that. Bees are pollinators, and they help the economy. And so basically I'm hoping I approach this and start an agenda that, maybe you can look into this and we can get these things approved, because we got conflicting information and she's got an investment in this. And one of the things I just wanted to point out, because I'm trying to keep it brief for you guys, is I got these little brochures here for you. They're not really brochures, but basically who do I pass these out to?
Mr. Baker there to your left.
Okay, the first one, I'm going to keep one for myself here. I'll just read off of here for you. These are both from the Park District. Down the road, the Park District thinks that bees are appropriate in the state, or in the village of Downers Grove. This is an article from the past January 18th. Imagine collecting and enjoying your own honey from your own beehive in your own backyard. Downers Grove Park District is Downers Grove citizens, and they're saying this in your own backyard, yet I'm getting the conflict on the other side there. And I did talk to one of the village members one time, and he said that had he known that bees were affected by this, that he actually would have never voted for that particular agenda. I don't know how to approach it, so I'm seeking your guidance on this. The second page basically has a 5/19/18 Park District has a beekeeping class. Again, so the Park District has beekeeping, and although officially they say they don't help anybody set up, I have someone that I know said that they actually did help them have bee hives over in Downers Grove. And just the last thing in regards to this is I have, this is just a picture I'm not going to pass around, but this is my wife. They have a little, she doesn't know what this is, but she gets to carry this around. If anybody recognizes this picture, I didn't make multiples of them. But this was taken at the atrium of the Downers Grove North High School. My wife's a Master Gardener. The Master Gardener program has a situation where she comes in and she teaches the special ed kids, and that's why she's kind of by herself. You can't take pictures of them. But, you know, she does this for educational purposes. She's Master Gardener, Master Natural. She likes this stuff, and I get to enjoy the honey. So, anyway, I just like to seek your advice and see if you might have an agenda in regards to having the bees. My suggestion is if it would just turn back it back over to the state, because that's where it was before, and it seems the least intrusive method is to have the state Department of Agriculture, where she has to register with beehives anyway.
Thank you.
Be in charge of that.
Well, thank you for bringing up the issue. You've caught me at a disadvantage because I have not actually looked into the ordinance or the history myself with respect to bees and beekeeping. I know the Park District does have bees with respect to one of their facilities over in Lyman Woods, and in fact, they sell the honey over to Alter Brewing, which makes a very fine beverage using some of that local honey. So I don't think we have anything against bees. Park District, of course, is a separate unit of government, and they have their own property, and what they do on their property isn't exclusively outside of our control, but they're a different unit of government.
Well, I understand, but there's kind of a conflict where they say...
Sure,
okay.
but the village, I just don't know off the top of my head what the ordinance used to say or didn't say. I know when this issue came up with respect to chickens, it came to a lot of people's surprise that we had allowed chickens in Downers Grove for a long time. And the issue was whether it should be expanded or not. So this sounds like a slightly different issue, or maybe a very different issue. I don't know yet. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, and I think my colleagues have now heard about it, and all I can say is we'll see. One thing I will tell you, though, is when last time we took up an issue like this, it took about 1.5 years to resolve, because you'd be surprised that this is one of those topics that everybody in the community has a very strong opinion about. It's like paint color. Everybody has an opinion. But anyway, thank you for letting us know, and it's something I'll read up on, because I couldn't tell you sitting here what the background is.
Okay. Is there any follow-up that we can do, or?
Well, I think obviously there's been some investigation, and staff has reached a determination. We'll familiarize ourselves with that, I would think, in the first instance, and whether there's any movement to do anything, I just couldn't tell you right now, and I'm probably speaking on behalf of my colleagues, and none of us are in a position to give you an answer on that as we sit here at this moment.
New experience for me too, so thank you for your time.
Understood, but thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing it with us. Other questions or comments of a general nature? Good evening, welcome.
Hi, Charlotte Holtzen, 5226 Carpenter. I wasn't going to say anything, but if this affects him, it affects several other people I know, because there's a lot of people in the village that have beehives. So if it's going to be an issue, y'all ought to get that figured out, because I have a neighbor that does them, and I have another person that lives in a house I researched.
And I wouldn't say anything further if I were you, because where this comes up is when someone complains.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what happened with the chickens. There were people that had chickens, and until someone complains, guess what? We all got along.
But so is it okay for them to have them?
If it's against the ordinance, the answer is no. But I suspect someone complained.
Okay.
That's what happened last time. So rule number 1 in town is get along with your neighbors. And then we have fewer problems. Other questions or comments of the general nature? Well, hearing none, thank you for those that did speak. We appreciate it. That brings us to item 5, which is designated for a public hearing. And we do have a public hearing tonight. And it is with respect to proposed special service area number 10. This public hearing will please come to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider the formation of Special Service Area Number 10, known as Bridge Point Downers Grove, and the levying of taxes affecting said area. The Special Service Area is located at the corner of Lacey Road and Finley Road. An accurate map of said territory is on file in the office of the village clerk and is available for public inspection. Notice of this hearing was published in the Bugle on June 20th, 2018, and a certificate of publication is made part of these proceedings. I would like to summarize the procedures, which we will strictly follow for tonight's public hearing. First, village staff will provide an overview of the proposed special service area. Second, there will be an opportunity for members of the village council to ask questions or make comments. Third, there will be an opportunity for members of the public to make statements or comments, or to submit written statements or comments for the record. Fourth, I will again ask if any member of the village council wishes to make a statement or ask a question. Fifthly, thereafter, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn, and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. However, a recording of the proceedings will be made on village equipment and retained until the minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the village council. No rebroadcast or transmission shall be allowed without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. That was not part of the procedures. I just want to make sure people were listening. So with that, in accordance with the procedures, I will first ask for the staff presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Very quickly, this is a recently subdivided property which contains a detention basin for stormwater purposes on an outlot. The proposed special service area provides the village the right to levy a tax to cover the cost of maintenance should the property owner fail to maintain the basin pursuant to our village code. So this is really in the event that maintenance is not done, and the tax would only affect this property. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Moving to item 2, questions or comments from members of the village council. Hearing none, we'll go to item 3. Are there any questions or statements from members of the public with respect to the subject of this public hearing? Hearing none, I'll come back and ask once again to make sure that the members of the village council have no questions or comments. All right, therefore, I will now adjourn this public hearing with respect to that item. That closes the public hearing with respect to special service area number 10, and that brings us to our consent agenda. Item J, motion 2018-7845, has been removed from the consent agenda at the request of village council members, so I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda without that item, please.
Martelli, I move that this council approve the consent agenda with the exception of item J as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on the amended consent agenda from any members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The amended consent agenda passes unanimously, and that brings us then to item J. Do I have a motion to authorize $33,080 to E Aerial Roofing Solutions of Cary, Illinois for roof coating at Village Hall, 801 Burlington Avenue as presented?
Martelli, I move that this council award a contract for roof coating at Village Hall to Aerial Solutions in the amount of $30,080 as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Jose, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. I was the commissioner who requested that this item be removed, and I want to start by thanking my colleagues for the indulgence, but also thanking staff for the fact that they're coming in under budget on this. Unfortunately, I think this is still an example of throwing away good money. We all know up here that we need a new police station and a new village hall, and that we're sitting on land that's valuable for economic development. But rather than a solution to the problems that we face, we're getting a Band-Aid, knowing that construction prices are only going up and that interest rates are rising. Taxpayers deserve better. Taxpayers deserve the fiscally prudent step of unlocking this tremendously valuable downtown real estate to allow us to invest in the facility we need, rather than put another Band-Aid on a building that is far out of its useful life. So while I recognize that our staff cannot continue to work at a facility that's obviously leaking from the roof, and that's why we're talking about this, I just can't support putting additional money into this facility that we all know is far outdated and needs to be replaced. And that is the far better fiscally responsible solution. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the village council? My only comment is, obviously, I would also not like to spend $33,000 on something that could be avoided I would much rather spend it on greenscape or green technology for a new facility. I think that would be a better long-term use. But I also want to echo Commissioner Jose's comments and applaud staff for notwithstanding the situation that we're in with not being in a position to pursue a new facility at this point in time and spend the money differently, keeping this amount, this expenditure as low as it is. It is much lower than expected, and that's a credit to staff for doing that. So while it's certainly money that I think could be better spent elsewhere, the reality is that we have been unable to convince the totality of the council to go forward with a solution in that respect, and so this must be done in the short term to address a short-term issue. Once there is someone who can convince everybody to compromise and come up with an appropriate solution, then we won't have this conversation again. But that has yet to happen, and until it does, we have to do what we have to do. And so with that, a roll call on item J, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes 5-1. And that brings us to the end of our consent agenda and to item 7, our active agenda. We have one item on tonight's active agenda, and that is a motion as an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the Village of Downers Grove. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the Village of Downers Grove?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council amend the zoning ordinance by adopting certain text amendments as presented.
Second. Questions or comments on this item from any members of the audience? Questions or comments on this item from any members of the Village Council? Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. We started this project quite a long time ago, about 18 months ago. During that time, we consistently envisioned the uses that are really at issue here. We talked about at the last meeting about 3 weeks ago now. Apartments and condos in the downtown core, attached houses, 2-unit houses, apartments and condos in the downtown business area, bed and breakfast. We envision these all as permitted uses rather than special uses. From the adoption of the amended comprehensive plan up until 3 weeks ago. Now, after receiving no new information, it seems we're arbitrarily flipping and going in a different direction. If your concern is a 70-foot building in the historic downtown core, we're solving that. We had that solved regardless of whether these uses are permitted or special. If your concern is a 70-foot building in the remainder of the downtown business or in the transition district, this isn't going to help you. Making it a special use requires a hearing at the Plan Commission, requires a hearing here, but it has nothing to do with whether or not you can build a 70-foot building in those areas. Simply put, this is a solution in search of a problem. So while I support most of the changes in the zoning code, I can't support a last-second arbitrary change after we've affirmed permitted use on these categories for 18 months. So I'm going to vote no. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? From my perspective, I also would not have as many special uses as are now listed. In fact, just about everything's now a special use in the downtown, which I think is unnecessary. I don't think everything needs to be a special use. I trust in the process and the ability for people to make decisions and to provide appropriate parameters to bring forward to this community what it is that we think is most appropriate for it. I don't think everything needs to be, I want to make sure that I can change my mind if I want to. I've seen that play out in other environments, and I don't think it's particularly attractive or necessarily facilitative of the vibrant economy that we want to have in our community. So I was not in favor of changing everything to a special use. I also disagreed with not allowing a bed and breakfast, and I thought we should allow bed and breakfasts, but that should be a special use. So I do agree that in some situations that a special use is appropriate, but I don't think it should be for just about everything. That being said, I also trust that our land use planning boards, the residents of this town, and future councils will exercise wisdom and discretion and be able to achieve the balance of making sure that we continue to have a vibrant downtown and the rest of our community, and not exercise so much discretion that we actually undermine our own best interests and end up chasing valuable developments to other communities that then take all the benefits there with them, leading us to find other ways to fund our services and the future of our town. So with that confidence in my colleagues and my neighbors in the future, I'm not going to vote against this, although it's not my preference. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes 5-1. That brings us to the end of our active agenda. And to item 8, which is our first reading of our workshop agenda. Our workshop agenda is a little bit less formal. This is an opportunity for items to be presented by staff for discussion and consideration purposes only. No final decisions will be made on any of these items at this point in time. We flip things around a little bit after the presentation. I go to the village council and ask for questions or comments first, then we'll go to the audience and then come back to the village council. So with that, we have 2 items on tonight's first reading of workshop agenda, and as I described, typically we'll ask our village manager, David Fieldman, to present those items or to throw the baton to someone else to present.
I am throwing the baton on the first item to our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich. Stan.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Thank you, Manager Fieldman. The first item tonight is the mouse.
I really tried to talk long enough to make sure that...
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe just the next slide. Is that where we're at? So if we go to the next slide, is a historic landmark at 1514 Thornwood Drive here. The property is just a little bit southwest of downtown. Here just south of Maple Avenue. If we go to the next slide here, it's on the north side of the street, just east of Plymouth. Go to the next slide, we'll see that it's an excellent example of a bungalow home. So the bungalows are typically 1 to 1.5 stories. As you can see here, this is a story and a half. Gently pitched gable or hip roof with partial or full front porch. This has a partial front porch, and you can see it's a jerkin head gable, which is at the front there above the second story windows, where it's a clip or a little bit of a hip roof there. And this property also has a dark tapestry brick, which is unique. Sometimes with the dyeing of the brick, it's different colors, so that's called tapestry brick pattern, which they have. And if we go to the next slide, Mike, then we see that it does meet all the criteria. It is more than 50 years of age, and it is a good example of a bungalow. If there's any questions that council has at this time, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Terrific. Questions, comments from members of the village council? No, I'm, once again, very pleased to see this come before us, and I want to thank the homeowners, Juanita Shaw, for bringing it forward. We're always grateful to have residents voluntarily landmark their properties and add to the growing portfolio of treasures that will be preserved for the future. Questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Amy Gasson, 5320 Benton Avenue. I just want to express my support for this home being landmarked. It's a great example of a craftsman-style bungalow. And then I also wanted to just mention that the applicant was unable to be here this evening, but she's very excited about this. And I think it's especially interesting because it's really the first house in this neighborhood that's applied for landmark designation. So I fully support the application. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Good evening, welcome.
Hi, Rich Colavani, 6825 Cameron Road. I also stand in support of this nomination. I think it's unique and interesting that this homeowner actually made changes to revert the windows and the front windows to the original style. And these are wonderful people. It's a wonderful home, and I encourage you to approve the home.
Terrific, thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome back.
Hello, Charlotte Holtzen, 5226 Carpenter Street, and I also stand in support of this. I think it's great that we have a home that's not, a big old home, but a very nice small bungalow that is going to represent that part of our history.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience? Any final thoughts, questions, or comments from members of the village council? Understanding we are not acting on these things today. I see no one bursting at the seams, so that will bring us to our next item, item 8B, please.
Which is an ordinance providing for the regulation and application for small wireless facilities. And here to provide background information on this item is our village attorney, Vincent Petrarca.
Good evening, Ms. Petrarca.
Good evening, Mayor. Earlier this year, the General Assembly enacted the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act.
Over our objection.
Yes, over our municipality objection. This act authorizes the placement of small cell facilities in village right-of-ways. The act also preempts home rule authority and requires municipalities to enact ordinances providing for this location by July 31st, 2018. Some of the key provisions of the ordinance include the establishment of application fees, permit requirements, and it also sets a limitation on the height of the small cell facility to 10 feet above an existing height. That concludes my question.
Thank you. And this is essentially a model ordinance that's been drafted in conjunction and collaboration with a number of municipalities who've been involved in this topic throughout DuPage County.
Absolutely.
And I want to, on behalf of myself and the council, thank you for your involvement in that process. I know you've been working with your peers at other communities such as Aurora and Naperville to come up with the model ordinance that we have before us tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't once again express my displeasure that we even have to have this ordinance, because the legislation that was passed that allowed this is a terrible undermining of local control in terms of the use of our right-of-way and what we get to decide about what goes where for the benefit and the aesthetics of our residents, and also our ability to be compensated for allowing other people to use basically the public property. But the legislation passed, and we're stuck with it, and this is our attempt to do what we can within the space that we've been allowed by Springfield. So there, end of speech. Questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the audience? And we did, the DuPage County and just about every municipality, DuPage and beyond, lobbied vociferously against this legislation, but the ordinance is now giving us what we can do within the space we've been allowed. So we do what we can. I don't think there's anything more to be said unless there are any questions from the audience. All right, very good, thank you.
That is our first reading time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And since we've been off for a while, I do have a number of things to report on. First of all, I want to thank and congratulate the Downers Grove Rotary Club for another outstanding Rotary Growth Fest. Despite some early wet weather, I understand it was a record event with record turnout. And that's terrific because a lot of people in town and beyond, visitors and residents had a great time, and a substantial amount of funds were raised for very good local causes, so hooray to the Rotary. And I will also go on record as saying, isn't next year the 10th anniversary of Grove Fest being run by the Rotary?
It is.
I don't know, maybe the council that's around ought to do something about that and maybe collaborate with them to make sure that the 10th anniversary is more special than ever before. Just saying. In fact, this council could start that planning. Think about some ideas, because I think the 10th year anniversary of the Rotary taking this over from what for many, many decades was a village-run operation and have done an exceptional job. And yes, it can only happen in coordination with the village anyway. I think it would be a shame if we as a village did not step up our game a little bit for the 10th anniversary with the Downers Grove Rotary Club. Particularly given how much they give back to this community and what a wonderful job they've done to make the 10th anniversary bigger and better than ever before, which you seem to be doing quite well. They seem to be doing quite well on their own, but I think that would be something worth pursuing. So there, I've now said it. And as Yul Brynner said in the Ten Commandments, so shall it be written, so shall it be done. Can we do that?
Probably not.
No? All right. You're going to make me go through new business and then we actually get it written? But anyway, nicely done. Likewise, I want to thank everyone who made the Independence Day Parade last week a huge success. I think that was also one of the largest parades we've had with participants and whatnot. And despite the very hot weather, everyone performed exceptionally well. I want to thank Jenny Rizzo and everyone at village staff and the members of the Community Events Commission that helped make that a very successful event for the enjoyment of the entire community. Also, recently we had a very significant groundbreaking ceremony for Bridge Point Downers Grove. You may recall that earlier in the meeting we talked about a special service area for Bridge Point Downers Grove. Well, that same Bridge Point Downers Grove is something of considerable note. It is a development that will be up to almost 680,000 square feet across 54 acres. And it's funny because some people have said to me, I didn't know there were 54 acres in Downers Grove to be developed. Well, the space is up by Finley and Lacey Road in Downers Grove, up in the northwest quadrant, excuse me, and is truly a impressive facility that's being developed there, distribution, office, and other uses. It is one of the largest and most significant developments, certainly in the last decade in Downers Grove, and I dare say in DuPage County. So we're very proud to have Bridgepoint here in our community and having chosen Downers Grove to build this. At the groundbreaking ceremony, the folks behind it at Bridgepoint commented on how ideal the location of Downers Grove was for this facility, the labor market, the restaurants, the hotels. So it was very good things to hear what attracted them to our community, and great development. We look forward to seeing the ribbon cutting on that in the future. Speaking of ribbon cuttings, there was another event that was held today, as my colleagues certainly know, but many members of the public know, that recently, within the last couple of years, Downers Grove, speaking of consolidating and collaboration amongst governmental entities, we went from having our own 911 dispatch center to joining a regional solution called DuPage Public Safety Communications, or DUCOM for short. DUCOM was started in the 1970s with a handful of communities in DuPage County that decided to, in a model of intergovernmental cooperation, come together to provide 911 emergency dispatch for police and fire in the areas that they covered. And DUCOM now serves 44 different agencies, which include both the Downers Grove Police Department and the Downers Grove Fire Department. Today, there was a dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony on a brand new state-of-the-art facility that is now located on the Wheaton Governmental Campus. The reality is that the number of these types of facilities have been shrinking over the time and consolidating to achieve efficiencies that you can't get with multiple facilities. It's quite an impressive facility, which is designed to, and hardened as it has to be, given the nature of its purpose, to withstand an EF5 tornado. The walls are 12 feet thick with reinforced concrete. It contains 40 miles of communication cable inside the facility. As I said, we'll have over 114 employees. It serves 44 member police and fire agencies, and will handle 1.2 million phone calls a year in providing dispatching services to Downers Grove and many other communities in DuPage County. So we are grateful to the leadership and the staff of DUCOM for bringing this in on time and on budget, and also the support of the DuPage ETSB and DuPage County in making it all happen. One last thing I want to share, which was on the guidebook for the groundbreaking, or excuse me, for the ribbon cutting today, and that was, while visiting DUCOM, you will see a thin gold line in the communications center and on the employee uniforms. This line represents the 911 telecommunicator. And the quote that follows it is as follows: "Between the thin red line, the thin blue line, and the thin white line lies the thin gold line. The narrowest of lines represents those rarely seen, but always heard and appreciated. The calm voice in the dark, the heroes behind the scenes, the gold link that holds it all together, the 911 telecommunicators." And we're very proud that many of our employees who used to do dispatch at Downers Grove are part of DUCOM, and I wanted to read that quote in honor of their exceptional past performance and what I know will continue to be exceptional performance for the residents of DuPage County served by DUCOM going forward. If you get a chance to tour the facility someday, I would highly recommend it. It's quite an impressive facility, done well, done for the future, and yet done appropriately. And then last but not least, I do have one item of a much more somber note, and that is I wanted to comment on the sad passing of longtime Plan Commission member Phil Matazak. I was privileged to know Phil as a Plan Commission member when I was first in the Village Council, and had opportunities to work with him in that capacity. He left the Plan Commission, I don't recall, it was a while ago.
2, 3.
Yeah, but not that long ago.
No.
And unfortunately, Phil passed recently, and I wanted to just extend our condolences to his family on his passing, and also publicly thank him for all his contributions as a volunteer to the Village of Downers Grove on a land use board. He was always a steady ship in a stormy sea sometimes, so I greatly appreciated his mindful approach to land use matters. And with that, that ends the mayor's report. That brings us to item 10, which is back to our village attorney, Ms. Petrarca, for the attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What I wish to present this evening is an ordinance providing for the regulation of and notification of small firearms facilities. That will be on next week's agenda.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with those either here in the audience or watching at home items of interest and other goings-on in the community, or to report out on something from their role on another board or commission. For example, I serve as the secretary on the board of directors of DUCOM, which is one of the reasons why I went into such great detail about today's ribbon cutting. So I gave you my report, but this is an opportunity for others to do likewise with respect to boards that they may be serving as liaisons for. So I will start to my left tonight with Commissioner Earl.
Not any of those, but I do have a note from CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Planning Organization, basically, and they are taking input for their most recent plan, Go to 2050, and you can go online and read all of it or any of the 19 papers that they have that feed into this big regional, basically a big regional comprehensive plan, which will affect all of us, at cmap.gov. So that is my report, Mayor.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, I know that DuPage Mayors and Managers representing 34 communities in DuPage County will be collaboratively providing input to CMAP with respect to issues as they impact DuPage County. I actually believe in our meeting on Thursday, we're going to be taking up an item that we may be communicating to CMAP about with respect to how they handle service transportation funds, if
Yes.
memory serves. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Commissioner. Commissioner White.
No report.
Very good. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo your comments about Phil Matazek. Served with him on the Plan Commission. He was a consummate gentleman, and his comments on the petitions that came before us were always very smart and insightful. He served the village well for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Would just like to comment on the compliment the staff and everybody who participated in the Independence Day Parade. It was a very good parade, and it was very, very warm. There was a rush of cheers for shade. But people were out there. It was great to see them all, and special thanks to the bands and those groups that get in uniforms and march in that heat. It was something, but it was a very good parade. Thank them for their participation, making it a success. And like I said, kudos to staff for getting it all organized. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wallace.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
And I have nothing further, but we are not going to adjourn just yet. What we are going to do is recess into the committee room to take up the next leg, installment, if you will, of our discussion of the 2017-2019 long-range plan. That will be presented in the committee room just across the hall, so anyone present, I would invite you to join us over there in about 10 minutes. Let's keep it 10 or less. And with that, I will ask for a motion to recess to the committee room, please, for that purpose.
Mr. Chairman, I move the council recess to the committee room to consider the manager's report.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. We are recessed to the committee room. We will resume in there in about 10 minutes or less. And for those of you watching at home, thank you, and we'll see you shortly.
To the committee room to discuss the manager's report. So with that,
Because I'm hungry.
Dave Fieldman.
Start reporting. Mayor Tully. We're talking about an update to the 2017 to 2019 long-range plan. We have been doing so for the last couple of months. In our updates, we identify key issues which may affect not only the upcoming FY19 budget, but which may also affect our short to long-term future. In addition to that, with these updates, we provide progress reports and have discussions on our priority action items. You may remember in May, we talked about general fund issues. Got direction on those. And then last month, we confirmed our priority action item, work plan for the balance of this council's term. Tonight, we're talking about other post-employment benefits, OPEB. This is a high priority action item for this council to create a plan to address OPEB. First of all, let's start off with what the heck is OPEB? Other post-employment benefits. What we're talking about here are the health care benefits that the village provides to our retirees. The state requires that all municipalities make available to their retirees access to these health benefits. These health benefits do not include dental or vision. The The issue is that the cost to municipalities of providing these benefits exceeds the amount paid by these retirees into the village fund in terms of health premiums. So it costs more than we receive back in revenues in the form of premiums. The issue that was identified in the long-range plan that we're addressing with this action item is that the actuaries have calculated our village's unfunded liability, the amount, the difference between revenues and expenses. It's sitting at $12.3 million. That's down from over $17 million just a couple of years ago. This unfunded liability of $12 million will appear starting on our FY18 financial reports or audit. This is under new Government Accounting Standards Board's rules. It will appear on all municipalities' FY18 financial reports.
I apologize for interrupting, but I think that point bears repeating, is that the situation you're describing is not one that has come to pass or it currently exists because of something that we have or haven't been doing improperly. There's been changes in requirements and regulations and reporting.
That's correct. We did not change any operations. Other municipalities did not change operations. The accounting rules changed, and hence this is what is the product. So this is an issue for all municipalities in different amounts. So we are not alone in this issue. In fact, ours is relatively low when you look around the landscape. So these numbers will appear not only on our FY18 financial reports, but on all municipality financial reports. Failing to address this issue or have a plan over the long term to address this issue may negatively impact our village's bond rating, which is AAA, the highest it can be right now, and therefore would have the effect potentially of increasing the cost of any of our infrastructure projects for which we use debt instruments to fund. So that is the issue in a nutshell. Staff has been at work on this issue of creating a plan for the past several months, and really the discussion's been going on for a couple of years. We have a detailed report in the council agenda items, but here's a quick summary of the plan. Step 1, create an OPEB trust fund by the end of 2019. What is an OPEB trust fund? Well, it operates much like our public safety pension funds. When we create this trust fund, it requires the creation and council approval of 3 key documents that help us operate the trust fund: a trust document, a funding policy, and an investment policy. All 3 of these key items will be presented for council review and approval sometime before December 2019, probably the middle of 2019. All council members here are familiar with these items. We have these same items for our 2 public safety pension funds. Step 2, reduce this unfunded liability using 3 steps. So how are we going to go about reducing our unfunded liability? First, we're going to make annual contributions, again, similar to public safety pension funds. The plan calls for us to make $300,000 annual contributions in both the current year, 2018, which the council has already approved that budgeted amount, the 18 budget, and then again in the upcoming year, 2019. This is a good start into addressing this issue, but it is not the actuarially determined contribution. That number stands right now, it's somewhere around $800,000. And our draft plan calls for us to start making the actuarially determined contributions in 2020 and then in the years beyond that. Step 2 of the plan. Use investment returns from this trust fund to reduce the village's annual contribution. So the idea is simple. When we put the money into this fund, we invest the money according to our investment policy. We try to earn returns. To the extent that we earn returns, that's money that we don't have to put in the next year. So the idea is put your money to work. Step 3, provide financial incentives to our own retirees to participate in another plan. So if the issue is that it's costing us more than we're receiving in revenue in terms of premiums, there are some plans which are available to some of our retirees which they could participate in. The idea here is we would identify a financial incentive that is a win-win. Win for the village in that the financial incentive we're providing to them is less than the cost of the OPEB liability. A win for our retiree, because for those who want to choose another plan, they can actually get the same or better retirement benefits, health benefits at a lower cost. But we won't just hand them a check and hope they find these services or other plans. We will actively work with them to provide guidance and assistance to these retirees who may choose to use this financial incentive to help them get the benefits that work for them. Had a long conversation with Commissioner Waldeck about this process. That's the win-win we're looking for financially on the village's side and for our own former co-workers, our retirees. This should seem very similar to the way we approach public safety pensions. That's because the fundamental aspects of this are the same. We believe the result of this plan is simple. It should result in a lower overall cost to the village for the provision of these required health benefits. That's a very brief overview on what can be a very complicated topic. If we get any complicated questions, Judy's here to answer those. Easy ones, you can throw at me, right? Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Billman. Questions, comments from Commissioner Earl?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask. When are the retirees given a one-time opportunity to be in or out? Is that the deal? They can't come back after the fact, 10 years later or whatever, and say, you know, I choose now to be in your retirement plan?
They have to make that election upon retirement.
Upon retirement, okay. That was, I just, so we know what we're dealing with. It's not like somebody's coming back to us later and saying, I used to work there, or I retired from there, but I want back in now.
Right.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Yeah, I think I like this plan. You know, when you talk amongst your friends, you know, and you talk about insurance and coverage and that, there's really no plan that covers everybody's needs. So while some people may say, oh, it covered my hospital, well, it doesn't cover my drugs, now you have options. And it's nicer that, you know, not only do you have an option that is more personalized, but also could be cheaper in the long run, both for the employee and for the village in the long run. So I think it's a good plan. No matter what we do, it's going to be expensive, and the state has rules and regulations that we have to follow. But I think this is a big step in the right direction.
Thanks, Bill. Greg?
Thanks, Mayor. I agree wholeheartedly with what Commissioner Waldeck just said. This is absolutely the right way to go. And I say that as somebody who provides legal counsel to funds exactly like this in the private sector, collectively bargained, self-funded health insurance programs. Setting aside money, allowing it to grow, and reducing our costs by doing so in the long run makes perfect sense. So, my thanks to staff.
Thank you.
I agree.
I'm going to say less than that. Other questions or comments?
You already said more than I did.
Procedurally, start counting. Substantively, I've said nothing. Procedurally.
Thank you to staff for coming up with the plan. No way to attack it. Appreciate it.
Questions from the members of the public? Please.
Is there on our bonds that we issue for the debt, is there a repricing on those if we're downgraded?
No. I mean, they're traded out in the market, so whatever happens to them in the market, there's no impact to us.
So they can't reprice them? Okay. And then that report was pretty big that you put out there this afternoon from, what is it?
About
May 31st, I think?
Yeah.
The actuarial report?
Yeah, sorry.
But there was a line item in there for dependents and spouses. Are those for the retirees that are deceased?
PSEBA, a lot of that is PSEBA benefits.
Okay, PSEBA. Sounds like PSEBA benefits. Public Safety
Employee Benefits Act.
Benefit Act. These are spouses of deceased former public safety professionals who retired on a disability under the law.
So they're deceased and they were disabled on the job?
Not deceased, just disabled on the job.
We don't have any deceased.
We don't have any deceased.
Would they fit into that category though?
They could be.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's governed by state law.
And then the amount that you can charge for the retirees, is it limited by a certain percentage per year, or what's kind of the metrics on that?
I think the general concept is you can't treat the retirees different than your own employees.
Another law.
That's the essence of this law, Tom,
Right.
where they start talking about what we have to do, you have to treat them the same.
And we're limited with the active employees by their collective bargaining agreements.
Actually, not necessarily. It's really been more of all village staff-wide approach to the provision of health benefits, not just union or non-union folks.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
If you have questions on that whole report, you can call Judy later. She'll
It's a little hard to read on my phone. What is it, a month old?
Yeah.
Pull that one up on a bigger screen. Other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments from the council?
So what we're doing tonight is...
Now you've said more than that.
Okay. No problem. I'll buy you a beer.
Okay.
What we're doing tonight is directing staff to create a document that we will subsequently adopt.
Yes,
So you're getting our sense that we're pretty much in agreement with the general direction.
that's correct. And so what a great segue into next steps.
We're picking up what you're putting down.
Yes, exactly. So in August or September, before the FY19 budget comes out, we will package up the product of these three discussions and call it the update to the long-range plan, and we'll put it on an agenda for council review and approval. After that, it will drive decisions for FY19 budget and beyond for this council.
From September through like May,
Yes,
June.
exactly, and probably will have long-lasting direction, as an example.
Okay, good.
It's a sensible approach.
Thank you. That's all we have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
We're looking down the road.
I heard one guy on the business report today say recession in 2020.
I heard guys say a lot of things.
Thank you.
Don't make me get out my challenge coin. That inside joke. All right, very good. Well, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you for everyone's careful reading the materials and input and direction. We'll see more of this later, as the village manager indicated. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Sure? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. See you next time.